Hello, Coolman229 here, another Topic of the Week video, and this week, Christmas month continues with another Halo topic. This week's topic was submitted by Android89, and her topic is, can you talk about Bungie's approach to the Halo EU compared to 343's approach, and which one you feel did better? Alright, there's a lot to talk about with this. Now, I showed this off, these are, the Bungie era EU books. These are the ones I own, and the ones I've read. These, three books, this is the Nylon trilogy, Fall of Reach, First Strike, and Ghosts of Onyx, consist of what can be considered the core of the Halo expanded universe. And there's a lot of really good stuff in this, really good stories. If you're a fan of Halo, I highly recommend reading these books. I mean, at the very least, First Strike, because there's a lot of interesting stuff in First Strike. Fall of Reach, I recommend First Strike too, but, there's a lot of interesting stuff in these. But ultimately, the most important part about these in discussing the game's relations to the expanded universe is that you never have to read any of these books in order to understand what's going on in the games. You can play the games, Combat Evolved, Halo 2, Halo 3, ODST, Reach. You can play all of those and you'll still know what's going on. They don't leave out important information. They don't require you to read the books. They don't start talking about a whole bunch of stuff from Fall of Reach and then, you're just like, oh, well, what's going on? They'll be like, well, you gotta go read the book. None of that. I actually started playing the Halo games before I knew about the books, but before I had read the books. In particular, the first game I played was ODST, because a friend of mine got me into the series by getting me to co-op it with him. And then we did Halo Reach, and I would consider Halo Reach the one that makes the most references to the EU, because it does reference stuff. I mean, you actually play as Spartan 3s, which were first introduced in, Ghosts of Onyx, well, properly introduced, but there's a lot of other references. Dr. Halsey, who was first introduced in, the Fall of Reach, is in the game, and they make some other references. I'm not gonna, spend too much time going on there, and it makes references to that really only make sense in the full context if you've read, specifically these books. But having played the game without knowing that, I knew some stuff about, specifically I knew stuff about this because around the time I got into Halo, sort of like checking out, Ghosts of Onyx had come out and I had a friend who read it. But I didn't know all the stuff that was going on in the books. I played Halo Reach and I enjoyed the game. I understood what was going on in the story, and I thoroughly loved it. So, and then when I went back and when I read the books, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what they were. And then I went back and I really played Halo Reach. I'm like, oh, so that's what they were referencing. But they were just references. They're more or less Easter eggs, sort of. And if you actually dig into the EU, you start understanding things a whole lot more. But that's it. That's that nice thing. So, if you play the games and you play Halo Combat Evolved, and you don't really know the whole situation exactly. You're Chief, you come out of cryo, you got to fight the Covenant, you land on the Halo, and things go all to hell. But if you've read the Fall of Reach, you understand the full story. But you don't need to. You can literally boot up Halo Combat Evolved, play the whole game, and you'll have a satisfying experience. You'll get the full story. You play Halos 1, 2, and 3, and you get the story of the Halo trilogy. I think it was very obvious as I was reading through the Nylon trilogy that Bungie seemed to make a very clear effort to not have the games and the books cross over too much. It'd be like, okay, so you have, these events. And, First Strike explains, how Chief got from the end of Halo 1 to the beginning of Halo 2, more or less. You get the story in between of how that happened. You don't really need to, and it's obvious that the stories were designed so that you could play the games, you wouldn't need this. And it became obvious, particularly when you get to, Ghosts of Onyx, and Chief's not really in this one much, except mostly for flashbacks, but you get mostly the rest of Blue Team plus Kurt. And it felt obvious that, as I was reading the books, that they were going out of their way to keep Chief from being with Blue Team much, and as much as it kind of annoyed me, because I love Chief and Blue Team, that, it made sense because they didn't want to suddenly bring in all these other Spartans in a game and just, throw them in and then be like, and the players would be like, I thought Chief was the only Spartan. when did this happen? And you'd be like, oh, well, you're going to have to read the books in order to know who they are. Or they would actually have to take time to explain who they are, and there's having to condense a lot of stuff from a book into that story, and it might bog things down from the overall story a bit. So it's very clear that Bungie made efforts to do that. The only time when they actually dipped into the EU really was with Halo Reach, and it really wasn't that much. Now, controversies about what it contradicts. I don't really think it contradicts as much as people think, but that's a whole topic for a different discussion. But basically, the important point for Bungie's era of the EU compared to 343's is that these books are all supplementary. This is stuff you want to read if you want to dig deeper into the lore of Halo. You got Origins of the Spartan, introduction of characters like Dr. Halsey. You get a lot more on Blue Team. You get some cool Forerunner stuff. Spartan 3's and a lot of, even more Forerunner stuff. Spartan Grey Team, and you get more about Captain Keyes. Well, okay, he wasn't Captain during this time, but, you get more about him. This Sergeant Johnson. If you want more about this, these books exist to be fun. The shorts and movies and, stuff like the Halo Legends. All that stuff exists for hardcore fans if they want more than just the games. But the games exist on their own. Which brings me to the 343 era of the Halo EU and how it completely destroyed everything. Now, okay, ignoring issues such as complete canon contradictions, which that's also a fault of the Halo, game, the new Halo games, Halo 4, Halo 5. 343 obviously doesn't know anything about the Halo canon. You get terrible books, particularly ones and they had Karen Travis, who's the absolute hack who killed off Mara Jade in the Star Wars EU because she was mad that Timothy Zahn's characters were more popular than hers, and just sent a whole lot of things into the tailspin. Yeah, she wrote the continuation of the Nylon trilogy, including demonizing Dr. Halsey, which Eric Nyland respected his audience enough to let them make their own judgments on whether she was justified or not in what she did. But nope, not to Karen Travis. And you end up with a lot of issues. But one of the most important issues is the fact that you cannot play the games without engrossing yourself in the EU. You simply can't. There's so much in the games that they just don't tell you. And the problem is that they're trying to go for this big grand story that ties into the Halo expanded universe. But it's like they're just lopping off whole segments of the game and then just putting it in books. Hey, do you want to know more about the Didac from Halo 4? Well, you have to read books in order to understand that. The game does tell you, sort of, but it doesn't give you the full details. If you really want details, gotta read the books. Okay. This would be like, the Didac and the Librarian, which, just the confusing mess that was. Going the Didac and the Librarian from the Halo 3 terminals to the Didac and the Librarian from Halo 4. Because it's a different Didac. I don't know if it's exactly the different Librarian, but I've been looking at the wiki, and somehow this involves clones and reincarnation, and I'm not going to touch that. That's just too complicated for its own good. But you get into these games, and you have to read these books. Do you want to know what's going on in the world of Halo? Well, you can't understand that by playing the games. You have to read the books. By Halo 5, it gets even worse. There's expanded media that you need to. Hey, do you want to know who Olympia Vale is? Well, I'm sure there's some expanded media you gotta read in order to know who she is. I think there's some story about how she learned the Covenant, the Sangeli language at 9 years old or something. And I really wanted to love Olympia Vale. I really, really did, but the characters are so poorly written in Halo 5. Hey, do you want to know how Buck became a Spartan? Yeah, Buck, one of the premier ODSTs, is now a Spartan, with no explanation. You're going to have to read a book to understand that. And even then, it doesn't particularly understand, as far as I remember, it doesn't even go into why he became a Spartan. It's just, his whole team's screwed up, and yeah, they killed off the rookie in the new EU. ODST holds a special place in my heart as the first Halo game that I played to completion, and I was really attached to the rookie, and I was pissed off when I found that out. But yeah, you know, this whole stupid stuff happened, and Buck became a Spartan 4. What about ODSTs? Hey, do you want to know anything about what's going on with Sarah Palmer? Do you want her to have any character at all outside of being kind of a dick to Chief? Oh, well, there's a comic series that you have to read. Hey, well, you know, you also gotta play Spartan Ops. Hey, and even then, when you get into the, you know, Halo 5, Spartan Ops becomes rendered meaningless because the whole conflict with Dr. Halsey is rendered, you know, moot when she ends up just deciding, you know, Jul'Mdama's killed and they get Dr. Halsey and that's it. So all the people who had read books and all the people who got into the expanded materials and they got attached to Jul'Mdama's character and thinking he was going to be super important, axed in the beginning of Halo 5. First Osiris mission. Pretty sure it was the first Osiris mission. There were so many Osiris missions compared to Blue Team missions. But yeah, that's another thing to talk about. But Jul'Mdama, gone. So all the people who had hoped that his character would be delved into in the games, nope, he's gone. And that's it. Halo 5 just wipes away a lot of stuff from the other expanded materials that I didn't even get to. But other people were talking about how they followed this stuff and they were pissed off that Halo 5's just like, oops, I guess all that investment you put in was for nothing. Yes, but getting into Blue Team. Alright. So, I talked about Blue Team was introduced here. This is where we're really introduced to, you know, Chief, the Blue Team, Kelly, Fred, and Linda, and Sam, too. Sam was one of the original members, but he died. Blue Team are Chief's closest friends. And considering that Chief was raised with the other Spartans, so the Spartans are like family to him, but Blue Team in particular are the closest ones. They're the ones he worked with the most. They're the ones that Chief held a very strong bond with. It is an understatement to say that he cares deeply about them. When, in a little bit of a moment in First Strike, you know, Chief is super, like, professional. Chief doesn't even let people's deaths faze him because he has to complete the mission. When Kelly got hurt in this book, Kelly is Blue 2. It's his, you know, his basically second in command, his best friend. Kelly is his best friend. They've been friends since they were 6 years old. And they're like in their like 40s or something. I don't remember the exact age, but I think they're in their early 40s by these books. You know, by the, you know, the games. When Kelly was severely injured in this this book, he hyper-focused on Kelly. Now, granted, you know, he's still continuing the mission, but he had an admiral, he had Dr. Halsey right there, he has VIPs, people who he's supposed to prioritize, and his focus was on Kelly. He cares that much about Kelly that even for a moment, he's distracted from his duty. When Halo 5 brings in Blue Team, do they actually give you an explanation? No. The answer is basically, go read the books. And you know, the funniest thing is, you can't even just read their new books. You have to come and read these, because their new books continue from these. They're bad continuations, but they're continuations nonetheless. So, if you really want to know more about Chief's relationship to Blue Team, you gotta read the Nylon trilogy. Or at the very least, The Fall of Reach. And then you might be wondering, and you read this, and you're like, okay, but how did Chief, you know, reunite with them? Well, you're going to have to read another trilogy of books about how Blue Team got off of, you know, Onyx, and then you're going to have to read a comic series about how Chief reunited with them. So there's so much research and homework you have to do in order to understand anything in these games. You know, it's like, it's absurd. There are only two reasons I can really think of that this would happen. One, greed. Microsoft and 343 really want you to buy all of the materials, so they'll split up the game's stories amongst books, and they'd be like, oh, well, you know, if you want your answer, you're going to have to buy this book. If you want that answer, you're going to have to buy this book. If you want that answer, you're going to have to buy this trilogy of books. And it's stupid. The other thing I would think of is just general incompetence on how this sort of stuff works. Bungie made an effort to not have too much crossover between the books and the games. Stuff from the games can be important from the books, and stuff from the books can be important to the games, but they're never so important to each other that you absolutely need to read the books. in order to understand what's going on in the games. 343, all that's out the window. You need to read these books. You need to read these comics. You need to listen to podcasts. You need to go and read, comics, watch movies, watch shorts. You're going to need to translate ancient Norse runes. You're going to need to know all of that stuff in order to know what's going on in the games. And even then, it doesn't particularly affect stuff in the games. It's just important for you to know. Who is Blue Team? Read the books. How did Chief reunite with Blue Team? Read the books and read the comics. Who's Spartan Locke? Oh, well, there's a movie that's not even all that important, but you kind of need to know to watch it in order to have any context for his character. I mean, the games don't do anything. And, considering how big, how popular Blue Team is, I remember there was excitement about Blue Team coming in for Halo 5. And I remember, after Halo 4, and I had completely cut off from the series, when I saw Halo 5, and I had a little bit of hope that Halo 5 might be good. Because I was just watching some gameplay, someone I saw, and I was just sitting there, and I saw the names Kelly, Fred, and Linda, and I was just like, Blue Team? Blue Team's in the game? Okay, I have to check this out. This is okay. They can't screw this up. This is gonna be great. Then I saw the game, and I was just like, nope. They don't bother. I think the most they say is from, I believe it was Locke, and he says, oh, well, yeah, they trained together. Way to undersell the massively important relationship from the books. Yeah, it's not just that they trained together. They lived together. They breathed together. They died together. They bled together. They are each other's best friends. They are their family. No, they didn't just train together. That's part of it. But they trained together since they were 6 years old. And yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So when you bring them in, and they're just kind of there for the most part. They said they have a few lines, but again, you wouldn't know who these people are if you hadn't read the books, and that's important. They made supplementary material for the new games required reading. You have to literally do homework for these games in order to know what's going on, and that's not good writing. It's not how you're supposed to handle an expanded universe. You do not cut off important parts to sell to people again in book form. I mean, okay, if there was stuff that, if they at least gave a proper introduction to Blue Team, it wouldn't be as bad. But they don't. They just show up. There's so much materials and homework. You have to go back years of expanded universe material in order to understand who they are. You're going to have to scour the wiki in order to get basic information. And that's not good writing. Shoot, if you want any importance of what's going on in all these books, when Cortana starts going off about the mantle, what? Nah, go check out the EU. No. I honestly do believe that when it comes to the new series, Halo 4 onward, that incorporating stuff from the expanded universe is actually a good idea. But you gotta do it right. And, I have a rewrite of Halo 4, that actually does that, but you have to do this carefully, because you need to be able to write the games with the idea in mind that the people who are playing them aren't required to have read the books. You have to assume that they've only ever played the games. When you get to Halo 4, yeah, it's kind of a given to assume that you've played Halos 1, 2, and 3. I kind of consider that important if you're playing the fourth numbered game in a series, but particularly one like Halo 4 that really does pick up where the last one's left off. It's important to, I think, incorporate a lot of those elements, but you have to explain this to your audience, because guess what? The people who read the books aren't a minority. I'm a minority of the Halo players. I've played the games and I've read the books, and not a lot of people have. Most Halo fans have only played the games. So you can't sit here and start front-loading people with homework going, all right, I want this done by Tuesday. I want that done by Wednesday. And you can't forget this all before Halo 5 comes out. No, you can't do that. And that's really the failure of where 343's handling of the Halo EU comes in. You split up the story amongst so many different mediums, to the point where the primary medium, the games, does not even function as a basic story without it. The original Halo games, Bungie, old Bungie's, pre-Destiny Bungie, their Halo games could all be played without reading the books, like I said. And that's the important part. They need to be able to be played without relying on the expanded universe. When you actually start relying on every other medium to tell your story for you, no, you shouldn't even be bothering as a writer. And yeah, it's hard. If you have this grand story that, even the original Halo games had, there's a grand story going on, but the Bungie and they were writing those games, they made a clear effort in order to make it so that you didn't need anything else except the games to know what's going on in the games. 343, good luck. Go do homework and go read a dozen books. Go read a bunch of comics. Go watch movies. Go listen to podcasts. You need all that stuff in order to understand what's going on in the games. And don't watch trailers for games like Halo 5, because those are pretty much complete lies. The Halo 5 trailers about the hunt were so much more interesting than the actual game itself. But I'm a little salty. But yeah, that's really it. Bungie did it better. The worst Bungie got was Halo Reach, which I honestly think most of the issues that they have, people have answers to them, but 343, they messed up. They clearly don't know what they're doing. They obviously, since Halo 4 came out and was a complete and utter travesty, obviously they have no clue what they're doing. The writing teams, the people who are writing the games, and even a lot of the books, they don't know what they're doing. It's a complete mess. And there's a reason why I kind of cut off Halo right after I checked out Halo 4. And it's gotten significantly worse since then. But yeah, I think I'm going to stop this right here, because I think that's about it for today. So, yeah. If you want to submit a topic to me, you can either comment below if you're on YouTube, or go to my blog on Tumblr and send me an ask and do topic, and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Just make sure to follow the rules I'll be posting down below. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. And thank you for watching.